The purpose of today's lecture is to describe the 5 forces framework for industry analysis attributed to Michael Porter. Let me just say a few words about Porter himself, who is a professor at Harvard Business School. He wrote this framework, the original article behind this framework, in 1979 in an article called How Competitive Forces Shape Strategy. And that was reissued in January of 2008 with some updates. The framework was really popularized in a book called Competitive Strategy that was published by the Free Press in 1980 and then reissued in 1998. I think it's fair to say that this is one of the most famous and useful frameworks in the business school curriculum. Certainly it's been widely used, and I would argue is been also widely misused in some circumstances. Porter himself has advocated that this framework is useful for both understanding historical industry performance as well as predicting future performance in an industry. What I'd like to suggest is that we use it primarily in the first instance to understand historical performance. And the reason for that relates to the difference between strategy frameworks and theories of strategy. Theories are about causal relationships. They're about one condition causing another. For example, you would say that humidity causes rain. You wouldn't say that umbrellas cause rain, even though in the presence of rain you may often see umbrellas. Frameworks differ from theories in that they don't become embedded or engaged by this question of what causes what. What we're interested in studying industry analysis is the conditions that accompany high profitability without getting too tangled up in disaggregating exactly what's causing what. We wouldn't know, for example, whether buyer power is causing high industry performance or whether high industry performance is associated with buyer power. I'll talk about that also a little bit later in this lecture. The bottom line is that we're relatively safe. We're safe in using this 5 forces approach as a framework as opposed to a theory. And it's the best way to learn this approach as well in my experience here. So we'll be thinking about this as a framework, looking historically at performance and asking the question, what is it that accompanied that high performance in the past? Now, what we'll be focusing on using this framework, and it's a strength of frameworks to do this, is to look at different trade-offs. We'll be looking at the system of forces that drive industry profitability, and we'll be looking at what causes trade-offs here. What are the specific trade-offs that are engaged in this context that might drive profits to be high or low? And the goal of strategy is to think about a plan that deals with those trade-offs. We're interested in a vision for how a firm can defend itself against these different forces that determine industry profitability to take advantage of the opportunity there. And that relates to the role of these frameworks. The first one is to understand what's important. What are the competitive and organizational conditions that may give rise to high industry profits? For example, we'll be looking at big growth industries, whether or not those are going to be profitable or not profitable. We're going to try to look at what's important, identify what's important, and then, of course, these frameworks are useful for trying to express both to outsiders and insiders to a company how the firm is going to approach the opportunities in its industry environment here. So the goal of these frameworks is to say, okay, here's our perspective on what the opportunity is in this industry context, and then we're going to develop a plan for communicating effectively how the firm is going to approach the big trade-offs that are engaged there. Which profitable opportunities are we going to pursue, and which profitable opportunities are we not going to pursue because they don't fit our strategy? So that's the goal of a framework like 5 forces analysis, is to understand what's important, how the firm is going to confront opportunity, and to communicate that effectively. In the next segment, I'll get into a little bit more detail on how to get started on applying this framework.